we're talking about the coronavirus occupying everyone's time. I mean, that's been the issue for me. Like when this allegation first came out, I was spending almost all my time on a coronavirus related piece, which published on Monday.
Great piece. Everybody read it.
Thanks. And I was like, oh, I'll get to the Joe Biden thing after. Maybe I'll do sort of like a second look analysis of the media coverage or something. And I had people who I know contacting me on Instagram saying, could you write something about this? It seems like it's not getting enough coverage. So for me, the number one reason why I didn't write something, and I imagine this is the case for many other journalists out there, is just that we're so occupied with other things right now. And, we're strapped for resources right now as news outlets, not just because there's this enormous story happening, but because people are trying to manage childcare and family care. So we're a little bit more short-staffed than usual. But the other thing, I feel very impotent when I try to grapple with this allegation, in large part because I don't know what we want to happen. There's no real established protocol for this. Even if we all believe Tara Reade, to convince the DNC to take action and stop Joe Biden's nomination or to ask people to support a different candidate in the primary, like it's borderline impossible at this point. It would be very hard to change the course of his nomination in a way that's democratic. And I'm not really sure what the standard of proof should be to divert that momentum around Joe Biden. But more so, I think that even in the primaries that have already been held or the primaries to come, I don't think Biden's supporters would vote differently given this information. I mean, when I think about Biden voters, I divide them into a couple of groups. There are people who think Biden would be the best chance to beat Trump and think we must beat Trump at all costs. There are people who are political moderates and want a moderate candidate. There are people who are drawn to his old school, traditional, sort of small c conservative takes on social issues. There are people who are very emotionally attached to him as a character and love him from his Obama association. And there are people who think the Trump era is just an unhappy accident and not indicative of any sort of urgent structural problems. Not that those are mutually exclusive categories, they obviously overlap, but I don't think that those populations are highly represented in, the foot soldiers of the Me Too movement, the feminists, the people who are advocating for an overhaul of gendered power structures, the people who mobilized against Brett Kavanaugh. These people didn't like Biden to begin with, by and large. They, were watching how Joe Biden, even when he was beginning his run, was refusing to take full responsibility for his mistreatment of Anita Hill. They recognized his disrespect for women in all the hair sniffing and head kissing stories. The people who would be disturbed by this allegation and think it disqualifying are not the ones who got us here in the first place. So they're not the ones that you would need to convince that he shouldn't be president, the people whose minds you would need to change. So I think if it's even feasible at this point to change the course of the Democratic nominating process, you would need to change the minds of the many, many people who voted for Joe Biden. And I don't see them being swayed by this allegation.